Howdy, it's Jim Murado, and this is March 2022. We're in Greeneville, Tennessee at the Andrew Johnson Homestead, managed by the National Park Service. Here's a quick look from the outside. I'm going to have some conversations with the ranger in here, and I'm going to let him talk a little bit. He has a lot to say.
Guided tour because of the COVID pandemic, but we did away with the masks last week, so I think we're going to go back to guided tours really soon, and that'll be great. Did you say you had visited before?
We have.
Very good. How long ago was it?
Maybe 5 years ago.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, not a lot has changed. I'll refresh y'all on some facts and get y'all started. The only good thing about the self-guided tour is you can spend as much or as little time as you want, and you can ask all the questions you want, and that's kind of nice. I'm Jeremy, so if y'all need anything, just grab me and ask me. But Johnson did purchase this place in 1851, and he lived here for about 10 years until the war broke out. And of course, he was a Union man, and this place was still full of Confederates, so he left. And he did not see this house until 1869. Do you remember why the walls are all papered in the house?
I do remember that the Confederates graffitied quite a bit of it.
We think both sides graffitied it. Confederates used this house as a hospital. Union soldiers used it as a barracks. And when Johnson sent his youngest daughter Mary back here to renovate, she didn't have time to replaster and repaint, so she just papered over all this stuff and basically forgot that it was under there. The piece that we do show upstairs is kind of hard to see because it's around the corner, and they've installed these glasses in front of the doors. But Johnson's great-granddaughter was living down here in 1956. She is the one that deeded this house and the contents to the Park Service. She and her husband had no children, and so they felt like the best thing to do with it would be to let you guys come in and see it. About 80% of this stuff was his. Yes, sir.
Oh, well, I was going to say, when we were here last time, I remember they mentioned a mirror house. The guy at the visitor center didn't know what we were talking about.
Correct.
And I remember we drove by and saw it because she wanted basically a replica of the house.
She did. When you go down this street, if you took a left out of our driveway and parking lot, you'd take a right at that first light and go up, and it's right behind that school. And she did. She built a mirror house to it, very similar. She did not die until 1992.
Oh, wow.
She's buried up there next to her great-grandfather in the National Cemetery. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
What y'all will do, and I'm going to go ahead and unlock all the doors so you can get in. You'll see these two rooms here. You'll go up and see the two bedrooms. This door up here above the steps, I'm going to go ahead and open it, and you'll just step out onto the second story porch. You'll see the nursery and Robert's room up there, and then you will use these exterior steps at the end of the porch to come back here, and this is where the tour will continue from there.
Okay, well, great, thank you.
My pleasure. Y'all enjoy.
Thank you. And that was Ranger, I believe his last name was Carroll, and I ended up talking to him quite a bit. Really fascinating guy. He's about to transfer out to Chickamauga, so that'll be interesting. I haven't visited that park yet. I look forward to hopefully bumping into him again. Loved his, he's from Georgia, and that accent is the real deal. I hope you listen closely to what he had to say. We talked a little bit about the copy house. There's a copy of this house elsewhere in town. I'll try to put a little more information about that up. But yeah, great information. And we'll talk to him a little more, in fact, here in just a second.
West of us here, they call it Mossheim today, Mosheim, but at one time it was called Blue Springs, and there was a battle in 1863 at Blue Springs, but I have not gone out there and checked it out. But this is the 26th. They are not open yet. In Rogersville, which is also west of Mossheim, 20 minutes from here, General Longstreet's museum.
Yes, we passed it on the way down. That's on my list to get to. I see they do bus tours and stuff.
They do.
And that's something I got to get on my radar and just
it's definitely cool. The guy, Kelly Ford, that runs the place is a tailor of all things. He makes reenactors uniforms and reproduction uniforms, replicas, and he uses, of all places, a little office there on the grounds. Now, it was moved there, but that office belonged to General Kershaw, who come through with Longstreet when they came through East Tennessee. So that's a historic spot up there. Something you'll want to see. And then, of course, you've got David Crockett's birthplace.
We did that last time. We've been to the Alamo several times too.
Very cool. I tell you what, that I went as a child, and I remember seeing it on TV in the middle of nowhere. And then when you see it, there's a high rise here, high rise there, like the middle of the town.
They're trying to knock some of that stuff down and redo some of it.
Really?
They've been talking about that for years. We were there last year. Was our last time there, and they actually have started. They've built like the little cannon part. It totally doesn't match with the rest of the scene. There's building, kind of this crooked, elevated cannon thing. But it's cool that they're doing that. They're trying to, I think, a little bit as they can. So, yes.
But by all means, if y'all have questions, let us know.
Sure.
We're happy to help.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Not sure if you've ever been there or not, but if you're ever down in northwest Georgia around Chattanooga, check out Chattanooga, Lookout Mountain, and Chickamauga Battlefield.
We haven't done Chickamauga yet.
Yeah.
That's probably our next.
I'm transferring there next month.
Are you really? Well, then.
Yeah, and there we go. Just thought I'd leave that little conversation in. I thought it was interesting. You've got the Davy Crockett connection not too far from here also, and just had a pleasant conversation with Jeremy about the Alamo, about Davy Crockett, about some of the other Civil War sites to see here. I wanted to leave that in the video. I didn't realize I had the record button going, so the images there might not be too exciting, but I thought that was an interesting conversation. And we would end up talking to him a whole lot more, and could have talked to him, longer too. I'll tell you about these rooms we're coming up on here, just so you know. And I did miss telling you about a couple rooms downstairs, but I'll try to mention those again before the video's over. But this sign right here mentions that we are about to go to Stop 6, the daughter's guest bedroom. And that sign says, "Where do friends and extended family stay when visiting your home? This room served as a guest room. Both Martha and Mary would have occupied this room when visiting their parents. Many of the artifacts displayed here were owned by the Patterson and Stover families. Martha Johnson Patterson, Mary Johnson Stover. The eldest child, Martha, was born 1828, married David Patterson in 1855, and raised 2 children. Martha served as hostess of the White House during her father's presidency. She died in 1901. Mary was born 1832. She married Daniel Stover in 1852 and raised 3 children. There's a sewing machine. This Wheeler and Wilson brand sewing machine was presented to Martha Johnson Patterson when she served as hostess of the White House during Johnson's presidency. A cameo of Andrew Johnson in a shadow box. This cameo was made by A.B. Demarest, and the shop advertised that Andrew Johnson medallions could be furnished within 1 week of ordering. There's also a nightgown purportedly belonging to Mary Johnson Stover. So I got just a little information there about the room. And actually now we are in Eliza's room, and there's some of that graffiti we talked about earlier that's preserved. I tried to get my camera on it. I couldn't really do it. I do have some pictures from when we were there before I'll put up at the end of this video so you can get a sense of the graffiti. But just a little bit about Eliza's bedroom. It mentions, did the COVID-19 virus have you stuck inside? Imagine spending most of your life indoors. Eliza Johnson did just that. She suffered from tuberculosis, which kept her confined indoors and prevented her from spending quality time with her family. And there's a locket photograph of Eliza McCardle Johnson circa 1840. There's a candy box which was presented to Miss Johnson by the people of France. The lid has oval glass with recessed flowers. And there's a reclining chair from 1865, and they called it her invalid chair. Note the spittoon next to the chair. Also a sewing bird, a little, looks like almost like a little pin cushion that the sign notes. And now we're looking, getting a little behind here, I'm sorry. We're in the grandchildren's bedroom, and there's a marker noting the Johnson grandchildren, and it mentions the animal blocks. These blocks adorned the circus-type pictures have opened ends that allowed each one to fit inside the other, forming one telescoping unit. There's a log cabin playset, the precursor to Lincoln Logs. The log cabin playhouse entertained countless children. And then there's also a faux fireplace mantle mentioned in this room. And we're back outside, and we're about to go into Andrew's son's Robert's bedroom. Just a little bit about him. He only lived to be 35. He was the fourth child and the second son. During the Civil War, he was commissioned a colonel in the U.S. Army. After accusations of drunkenness on duty, Robert resigned from the Army and served as President Johnson's private secretary. He did spend time in an asylum recovering from war melancholy. He never married. Inside of his bedroom, a bit of a tragic figure, but glad he's represented here. In the bedroom, there's a print of Washington closing the lodge from 1870. And there's a large sleigh bed, and it's not the one that Robert died in, but the bed belonged to Martha and was later moved to the homestead. And there's a bottle of laudanum in the room, used to relieve pain and induce sleep. Anyway, just an interesting little note there about Robert. And about to talk to Jeremy a little bit more about the house and the family and its history.
All right, guys. So before the war, this house, it had a 2-story front and a 1-story L back here. After the war, when Mary returned, she didn't have enough room to house everybody. So she cut the roof off of this 1-story L here. She added the nursery and Robert's room as well as this porch above, and made some changes down here as well. So originally there was a kitchen in here and the dining room was here. But when she got back here, this became the dining room. This became her brother Andrew Jr.'s bedroom, and down in the basement the new kitchen was installed. Dolly, Johnson's enslaved housekeeper, she and her 3 children had lived down at the base of these steps here. And after the war, she was emancipated, so she went up with her youngest child, Will, and she opened the tailor shop back up as a bakery. So here you have a formerly enslaved African-American female but successful business owner here in Greeneville in the 1860s and 70s. Dolly, a very special person, one of these salt-of-the-earth type people, I would call her. Nevertheless, she had left here, and her quarters at that time were turned into the new kitchen, and so it went to the basement. Y'all are more than welcome to go on in, and I'll go down and unlock that basement door
Sure,
so you
thank
can
you.
see her quarters too. Any questions from upstairs?
I don't think so. I know when we were here last time, it seemed like there was. Did they estimate that he had 8 or 9 slaves?
Yes,
and
I
they couldn't
think it
track.
was between 5 and 9.
And they lost track of some.
We did.
Any developments on that over the last few years?
There are not, but I do have a theory on the matter. Will, Dolly's son, was extremely close to Andrew Johnson. He slept in here quite a bit when he was a small child. He went to Washington as the official shoe shiner of the White House. When he came back, or when Johnson came back, Will helped him with his business. They were very close. And one of my predecessors pulled the death certificate of Will and found out that he did not pass until 1943, and he had outlived every single enslaved person that ever belonged to a president of the United States. Well, his death certificate down there under name of father stated Robert Johnson. And I don't think it was just any old Robert Johnson. I think it was our Robert Johnson. And I think deep down in his heart, Andrew Johnson knew that Will was his grandson. However, when Will died in 1943, like all these other Johnson sons, he had no children. And so we don't have any DNA or any way to prove that he was. And I even fooled around with it, and I was on a high when I found out this, and figured I'm gonna find an heir with the name Johnson, you know, but it wasn't to be. He did not have any children. So I'll put it this way: if I had $1,005,000, I'd bet you the million that he was his grandson. But again, no way of proving it.
Yeah, and if that's not some interesting information, I don't know what is. Of course, a ton of rabbit holes you could go down with that theory, and a lot of thoughts about that too. And before I pass it up, just real quick, we're in Andrew Johnson Jr.'s bedroom. Was a dining room that was converted into a bedroom, and he's the only son to marry. He was the co-editor of the Greeneville Intelligencer for a while, and he died of TB in 1879. He had no children. The painting on the wall, Ruins of Fort Erie by H.S. Blake. The painting depicting the ruins of Fort Erie, a popular tourism destination in its day. I just thought that was cool. The wallpaper, today the wallpaper throughout the house is reproduction based on existing patterns from the 1860s. During the 1869 remodeling, wallpaper was installed because it was stylish. And the bedroom, it looks like the bedroom, the bed was used by Andrew Johnson Jr.
You may or may not know the story of the two springs down there too. When Johnson ran away from Raleigh, he was an indentured runaway servant. He got here, and the first night he and his mother and his stepfather were here, they camped out on the ground next to those two springs. With that said, he was about 17 years old. 25 years later, a man named James Brannan had bought this property, and Brannan was he was building this home, and Johnson approached him and said, "I'd like to buy your house." And he and Brannan settled on a price of $950 cash and the deed to the early home up there that you would have seen earlier. I think he bought it where he could stand here where we are and look down at those springs.
Yes.
And I forget where it was he come from.
Oh, that's great.
But he was a sentimental man, and this was a sentimental purchase, I think.
The origin of the willow.
The origin of the willow. There was an island that Napoleon was buried on. There was a young soldier there that dug it up, or dug it was either Helena or Elba, and I want to say it was St. Helena that it came from. If it's not, it's Elba, but I'm pretty sure it was Helena.
Sure, it says on that sign, I'm betting. But
It's I'm thinking it does. Pretty sure it does. That's a tough book. Make yourselves at home and enjoy.
Thank
If
you.
you need me, just come grab me.
All right.
appreciate it. Thank you.
My pleasure, guys. Y'all be good.
And again, just another great conversation with Ranger Jeremy there. I really appreciated all the info he gave us. We're about to stop into, according to the historic marker, stop 11, the slave quarters / kitchen. And from that marker, Andrew Johnson owned approximately 8 enslaved people. We know that one, Dolly Johnson, lived in this room with her family. After emancipation and following the 1869 remodeling, this room became the kitchen. Imagine preparing meals here and then having to carry them upstairs to the dining room. Dolly Johnson holding Andrew Johnson Stover. Dolly was 19 years old when Johnson paid $500 for her in 1843. Dolly raised 3 children, Liz, Florence, and William. After emancipation, Dolly continued to work for the Johnson family as a paid servant. In 1881, she and son William moved into Johnson's former tailor shop, where they sold baked goods. Dolly died sometime between 1890 and 92. And I know it's a little out of order, but before I forget, as we're just looking around the grounds out back, I wanted to mention we looked at Andrew Johnson's bedroom earlier in the video, but I was chatting with Ranger Jeremy, and I didn't really get to tell you much about it. There is a hat and vest, a beaver hat, black top hat from Dunlap's, 5th Avenue, New York, and a blue vest. Both were worn by Andrew Johnson in that bedroom. There's also Johnson's travel shipping trunk, used by him during his last senatorial campaign, and Greeneville is misspelled on that trunk. Also a writing desk, and a print of Eliza Johnson. There is also, in the parlor, a piano, a Steinway piano, 1869, purchased for $575. Also a couple of paintings, an Andrew Johnson portrait by Samuel Shaver, and it was saved from destruction by Sarah Cutler during Confederate occupation of Greeneville. So just a couple of interesting side notes. And man, this has been kind of a heavy trip. I really enjoyed this visit. I learned a lot of information. Obviously some interesting stuff about just about everything. There's the house on the right. We're passing by it as we drive away. And we're actually going to turn around here in a little bit, but I edited that out and go by that copy house that one of Andrew Johnson's descendants asked to be built, so she would move out of that home for the National Park Service, I guess, to take over. But yeah, what a great visit to Andrew Johnson's home. You know, it's a very nice house. It's not a big mansion, but it's in such a nice area. I really like that house. There's something just kind of sweet about it. Andrew Johnson, obviously not one of the noted, he's not considered one of the more effective presidents. I think he was underrated. Kind of came in at a really hard time, after the Civil War and the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. Right here on the left, there's the Copy House. Check that out. It's basically a replica of the home we just visited, and I assume it's just a private residence now. How cool would it be to live there? I just think that's really, really impressive. And this was from our visit in 2015. There's where they have preserved some of the graffiti on the wall. Just for your interest there, I didn't get a good camera shot of it, so I wanted you to be able to see just some of that graffiti, that authentic, legit Civil War graffiti. So check that out. Yeah. So have you been to the that Andrew Johnson house? What do you think about it? What do you think about the presentation they're doing? Obviously, it's a self-guided tour, but we were really the only ones there, so we were able to ask Ranger Jeremy a ton of questions. We did take a nice guided tour of it back in 2015. Sounds like they're going to go back to guided tours here shortly, so that'll be something to look forward to. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you think about this site.